Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. You are listening to a Shabbat teaching with Rabbi Joshua Katzan from Mishkon, Tephilo.
There are many people that when I got to Los Angeles that I knew that I was going to be excited to learn with because I had known them when I was a student, and Rabbi Katzan was one of them. There are a few other rabbis, but he is the first one to always say yes to any kind of partnership and to any kind of teaching. And it's just such a pleasure to work in such a large city with a plethora of Jewish communities and Jewish opportunities to have colleagues who are so interested and willing to partner. So it's a pleasure to have you here yet again. He was in this room on Shavuot with a packed house, and people loved his session. So it's really a pleasure to have you back here, and Yasher Koach in advance. Yeah.
Question: what blessings do you know over food? What blessings do you know? Or just in general? Breaking of bread, hamotzi. Anything else? Over the wine? Good. Most important ones. Adama, which is fruit of the earth. Right, so like a potato. Ooh, there you go. Shehakol niyeh bidvaro. For anything you don't know what it is, it's shehakol. And
Rabbi?
Cookies. Yes, very
Rabbi?
important.
And
each
blessing has a special, one is for health, one is for parnasa, one is for...
That's right. Thank you. So generally we go to food, but there are many more blessings. When you meet a dear friend that you haven't seen in over a year, when you see a beautiful vista, when you see an unusually beautiful person also, which is interesting. There are blessings to try to direct our attention to what is special in that moment. And of course, there's Shehechianu, speaking of which. What is the blessing meant to do, though?
Appreciate something.
All right, to appreciate something. Well, aren't you going to appreciate it once you get it inside your face?
We thank God for the food he is providing.
That's right. We thank God. Okay, so that's etiquette. That's nice. Is the blessing meant to do anything other than that? Well,
To make us aware of what we are doing and to give gratitude for what we have.
beautiful. Two different things, actually.
Yes.
Awareness of what it is I'm about to do and appreciate, and then the gratitude that we bring forward for the pleasure or the opportunity or the life-saving quality of this moment, perhaps. Whatever the gratitude is that wells up within you should be brought to that moment. That's a beautiful, beautiful prayer. We wake up and immediately open our lips with a word of gratitude. One thing, though, that we all recognize is that the more we say something, the less we can be aware that we're saying it. Yeah. And,
especially if you're using somebody else's words.
Especially if you're using somebody else's words, and possibly even our own. I don't know, maybe. I haven't written my own liturgical poetry to test it, but knowing myself, probably after a while. And which, by the way, is part of the mechanism of what helps mantra meditations work. I do a Jewish meditation, but I started off with transcendental meditation. Anybody ever do transcendental? Yeah. The one most important teaching they have there in the instruction is you repeat the mantra and gently, and if you notice that you're off it, just come back to it. That's the instruction. Just come back to the mantra. And what happens is the more you say something, the more you let go of your attention to saying it, and then it kind of disappears. And hopefully there's an experience of transcendence, of letting go, of peace, and a lot more. So we have a plethora of mantras in Judaism, and blessings are among them. What they're meant to do, I think, is to help us be more fully absorbed in the thing we're about to do that we're blessing over. Lighting candles, etc. And so I thought we would look at a text to give us just an entree into this world of the idea of, when we say mindfulness, we're trying to fill our mind with what we're paying attention to. And being mindful can be a little bit different from our attention. We're all familiar with the word kavanah, or many of us are familiar with the word kavanah. What does the word kavanah mean? Intention. I'd like to suggest that to have kavanah, one also needs attention. Without attention, there can be no real intention. And we're living in a world now which is so incredibly distracted, so overstimulated. Just the fact that we have a smartphone on the table, this has been measured, means that the people at that meal will have a less happy experience just by its presence there. Because our attention is, even if it's quiet and in the background, is somebody calling me? Is something going to interrupt? Is something happening? And especially for the Jewish community now, since October 7th, we're on high alert, but we're not able to attend as easily. So we need to maybe find ways to be more intentional in where we direct our attention.
Put devices in their ears and they can't even hear. You can be shouting for help and they can't even hear you because they have these devices in your ear and they're...
And I'll tell you, we have one of the most distracting devices in our heads. It's called our brains. That's bad enough. And then there's so much more, right? So we have a tradition that offers some beautiful techniques to evade the pit holes, the potholes of living a more, I would say, fully experienced life. If we look at Mishnah Brachot, this is the earliest mention of what we might call mindfulness in the rabbinic tradition. Would somebody care to read it? We'll go through it really quickly. Yes, please. Okay, please.
Just whoever's going to read it has to use a microphone. Just because of the people on Zoom.
Yeah. Can you do it? Do you mind?
Yeah, I can do
You
it.
don't have
Okay.
to hold it so close. You just...
Okay, Mishnah Barakot. One may only stand and begin to pray from an approach of gravity and submission, mindful focus. There is a tradition that the early generations of pious men would meditate 1 hour in order to reach the solemn frame of mindfulness appropriate for prayer and then pray, so that they would focus their hearts toward God. Standing in prayer is standing before God, and as such, even if the king greets him, he should not respond to him. And even if a snake is wrapped on his heel, he should not interrupt his prayer.
Thank you. Okay. So what's the suggestion of the Mishnah about prayer?
Mindfulness is something that's gotten a lot of attention these days.
Right, so let's look at what is this Mishnah saying about that? That's right. And a shorthand for that is that you have proper attention. Because can pay attention. Okay, I'm about to daven mincha. Hurry up. Okay, stop what you're doing. Now daven mincha. You start the process of attention. The example here of the Hasidim Rishonim is that they would sit in attention for an hour and then daven mincha. Now, what's wonderful about so much of our tradition is that it can propose an ideal and give you examples of what the ideal looks like. And it's something to reach for. We shouldn't think, if I don't do that, that I'm less than. What is probably true, no matter what, though, is that if you don't do that, your experience will be less than what they experienced. Okay. However, what is there to be gained by being more fully, and as the language is, present in the moment of prayer, present in the moment of being with another person, present in the moment that you're about to eat? My favorite teachings from a Buddhist teacher was, when you're hungry, it's a signal to eat, and you look forward to eating. But then what happens is you put food in your mouth, and the next thing you're doing is thinking about the next bite of food that's going to go in your mouth, and not even the food that's already in your mouth. We're missing the experience that we've just achieved, right? So it's not to say, oh, you fail at life. It's to say that this is part of a natural, it's a natural part of our existence. But we can intend to bring more attention and a more fulfilling experience. It also means that we will, we will be more present and miss less. And in that, there's a lot of value. For those of us who study Torah and spend a lot of time on one text, I've studied this so many times, and then year after year, something new comes out that you weren't sensitive to before. It's a beautiful opportunity to have even just a moment of elevated experience. So I thought we would do an exercise with a wedge of orange. I'll cut them up. Now I know how many we have. And here's the exercise. I betray it there at the bottom. I'll talk it through first. We're going to spend 10 minutes in the process. We're going to take 10 minutes to eat a wedge of orange. The first 5 minutes is going to be spent just looking at the wedge of orange, attending to it, just looking at it. I will call 5 minutes. I'll call every minute, but then after 5 minutes, I'll say you can now begin the process of eating, but I ask that you not finish it until the second 5 minutes is done. It's up to you when you start to eat it after 5 minutes. Okay? Well, we'll talk about that, okay? So we have until 8:20, did you say? Okay, good. So it's only 8 o'clock? 10 minutes? Perfect. I'm going to need just a minute to cut those up, and then I'll pass it around. Now, the question is, when do you say the bracha? Should you say it before we start? Should you say it just as you're about to eat? I'll leave that up to you, whatever you're comfortable with.
While you're cutting, should I have them get other food to eat after you're done with the orange?
It might
kill two birds with one stone.
I'm concerned it might be a distraction, but then again, I'll leave it up to you. I'll leave it up to you. I don't want to hold people for too long, so maybe it's not a bad idea.
To eat, but just, okay, I'll explain. Okay, so we're gonna do Rabbi Katzan's. We're not going to eat yet, but if you would like to, while he's cutting the fruit, get food to have in front of you, so that after this exercise, you can eat the food that you have in front of you. Feel free. If it's going to be a distraction, then don't get it now, and you'll get it later. But I'm trying to kill multiple birds with one stone, in case you'll feel like you're missing the Torah after the orange exercise. So do whatever you want. And Rabbi Katzan, I'm gonna ask a question while you're cutting, but please be careful. We're gonna look at the orange silently for 5 minutes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so just this room should understand this because I think this might be difficult for some. For 5 minutes, when this orange is in front of us, we're not talking. Okay, so 5 minutes in silence, no talking, and then Rabbi Katzan will give us instructions. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, beautiful. So, for those of you who, and by the way, thank you for A, having me, B, tolerating this very peculiar request. Okay? I've done this for many years and with all demographic groups, and it's always something cool for most people. Okay? So, I will keep time. It's now 8:03. If you want to say the bracha, Borei Pri Ha'etz, beforehand, please. The first 5 minutes, just looking at, you of course may touch it and so forth, but please don't eat it until we're done with the 10 minutes. After 5 minutes, you can begin the process of eating. So, with that, I welcome you to your orange. And go. Should there be distractions or you find your eyes wandering, just bring them back to the orange. And should you find your eyes wandering, just bring them back to the orange. It has now been 2 minutes. Three minutes. Just looking at the orange. 4 minutes. Five minutes. You may now begin the process of eating if you like, but keep your attention strictly on the orange. Try to look only at the orange. Please do not finish it before 10 minutes. Six minutes. Keeping your attention on the orange. Seven minutes. Just looking at and consuming the orange. 8 minutes. Just paying attention to the orange. 9 minutes. Ten minutes.
This is the holiest piece of orange I ever eaten.
Is it the orange that is now more holy, or is it you? האם זה התפוז או אם זה את?
אני לא מבינה.
מה יותר קדוש? עכשיו, ברגע הזה, התפוז או את? מפני שעשית את התרגיל הזה.
אני חושבת שאני, אבל זה אני.
יכול להיות. Reflections? Yeah, please. Yes. Okay. So I don't want to get into theology. I'm really on a fundamental level, just talking about experience. And this is an exercise to have an entree into a different kind of experience. I'm just curious, what are other people's experiences of this exercise, of the orange? Yeah, please.
Oh, sorry.
Or,
That's okay. You know, I work for the United Farm Workers.
Right.
Take for granted, like so many of us, the food appears in the supermarket.
wonderful. Okay, beautiful.
I was just gonna say that I don't really like oranges, so it made me. It gave me more appreciation for. I like orange juice, like I like the taste of orange, but I don't love eating an orange. And I think looking at it and seeing, like Rosemary was saying, like the jewels of juice and like making it look appetizing because I was spending time really focused on it, made me not only interested in eating it, but almost excited to consume it. I'll leave it at that. I could connect it back to what you were talking about before, but I think there was power in paying attention to something even that wouldn't have been exciting to me before this exercise that became more exciting the more attention I paid to it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Please.
I am someone who often gets the giggles, so that consumed the first couple minutes of my experience. Alan, I'm sorry for some of my body.
I was focused on the order.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying.
Yeah.
But then after
That's
that,
fine.
you know, I love just the feeling of my mind beginning to calm and slow down. You know, one of the essays that I wrote in applying to Ziegler included a piece about how there was an academic work about if you take MRI scans of brains for people over a period of time who meditate, their brains change in all kinds of ways.
Yes.
In like healthy ways. And I would imagine the same types of changes could occur in prayer, right? For people who pray multiple times a day, every day, or whatever.
Yes.
This could only, you know, this kind of work only enhances that, right? It only enhances our.
And that's the point. Okay, so mindfulness is not only an experience in and of itself, it's part of the practice of enhancing the thing you're about to do or engage. As a meditator, as a lifelong meditator, I have experienced very clearly 10 minutes is a very important initial unit of time. Nothing is happening until 10 minutes has gone by. And after 10 minutes, it's like, oh, here I am. And then maybe another 10 minutes. Oh, here I am. And so Shohim Sha'ah, they sat for an hour to be really, oh, here I am. And then they could pray. Not necessarily what we ought to do, but that is a process that's accessible to us. Paying more attention, sitting with something, will open it up to us in a way that it just wasn't there before. And then from that point, saying the bracha and consuming, engaging, being in the world will hopefully be a more involved and, as I put here, absorbed experience. God willing, we should all be more absorbed in blessing in life. And I hope that this adds a little something to your journey. So thank you guys. Yeah.
Can I share one thing? Our teacher, Reb Mimi Feigelson, when we were learning about Shabbat in rabbinical school, one of the first things that she taught us is that in the Talmud, potentially in the Mishnah, I can't remember if it starts off in the Mishnah, that the rabbis actually prepare from Sunday or maybe even Saturday night until the next Shabbat. That there's this element of not necessarily waiting the way that it talks about here an hour before doing something, but that there is a mindfulness that we should have before we get into something that's supposed to be meaningful to our life. And I remember she painted this picture that I remember so well as if I was there, that when she was living in Jerusalem and now she's back in Jerusalem, that she would go to the shuk on a Sunday and she would buy a piece of fruit that wasn't fully ripe, but that she could keep for her Shabbos table on Friday. And every day she would look at that piece of fruit, knowing that Shabbat was coming.
That's beautiful.
And there's just this element of, in the business that we're in, we're always preparing for Shabbat, but to have this mindfulness towards something, whether it's prayer or eating or Shabbat, that we're constantly preparing ourselves, even through the mundane pieces, we're constantly preparing ourselves towards.
That's right. Beautiful. The word anticipation was coming up, but it's not quite anticipation. It's really more preparation.
Exactly. Right. For sure. And attention, as you said, like attention to, I'm going to do this thing so that I have more attention to it when it actually comes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Seems that the key ingredient to anything deep is time. Time spent with people transforms that relationship. Patience is, I think, is related to that. The more we spend time being patient with somebody else, over time creates a bond that wasn't there before. And so it's of a piece. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something that's of a piece. And so thank you, guys.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org